So Julia, welcome to the podcast. Super excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Of course. So Julia is a career coach, a personal coach, helping people to be high achievers. I like your Instagram page. You're a high achiever, and you want to work with people that are ready to work.
Yes,
So
yes,
that was
absolutely.
awesome. So welcome to the What's Why and How Can I podcast, and I'm excited to interview you specifically because this is mostly about careers and how people kind of offering career insight, and you're a career coach, kind of coaching people through their careers and making the right steps, making the right choices in life.
Yes.
So let's talk about the what, why, and what is a career coach. Introduce yourself, what you do, and we'll go with the questions from there.
Sure. So a career coach can take a lot of different forms depending on what you need in your career. And some career coaches will just help you with resume writing, job searching. I mean, really those nuts and bolts of finding a job.
Hmm.
And then there are other career coaches that walk alongside through your career journey. And I would say that's more of what I do. So it's not
Okay.
just, oh, do you need a job? It's more, you're in a job and what's next?
Okay.
Where am I headed? Where am I going? What's that path?
Okay.
And then also career management. So I know for a lot of people, they're in situations where they might have a tough work situation and not have anyone to talk to or debrief
Okay.
that isn't emotionally attached to the situation.
Okay.
And so one of the things that I do with some of my clients is I work through those situations with them. And so that's really where my heart is right now, is working with people who are high achieving, who want to be a better version of themselves. And when they come up against an obstacle, how do we look at that? How do we view it? How do we look at ourselves and how we've reacted? And then how do we respond and move forward and move past it or through it?
Okay. Awesome. I'll just real quick. So you're not a recruiter that we find on LinkedIn. I mean, there's thousands of them on LinkedIn.
Yes. And I think sometimes people get caught up in, oh, you're a career coach, so you're going to get a job for me.
Hmm.
No.
Okay.
No. If that's what you're looking for, then you do want a recruiter.
Okay.
And there are people out there who are C-level recruiters, who are recruiters for tech. Most of them are within a company, but there are like companies that recruit for multiple companies,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that is completely different. But you can use a career coach to help you even with those interactions and relationships. Because if you're meeting with a recruiter,
Hmm.
you still have to sell them because they're going to go to bat for you with a company. So you still want to put your best foot forward. You still want to have good materials, and they'll help you tailor to
Right.
what the client wants.
Hmm.
But even as a career coach, I've helped people work with recruiters as well, just to get in with them and get to the next level and stage with them.
Okay. So a little bit of maybe a backstory of how you got to being a career coach. I mean, was this
Yeah.
always was this always your like, hey, I want to be a career coach when I graduate high school?
Oh no, if we go back to high school, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And when I went to college, I actually switched and I was an art major with an emphasis in graphic design when
Hmm.
I was in college. And so I wanted to be an art director. That was the path that I was on.
Hmm.
And graduated and just couldn't find the types of jobs that I needed. I didn't have the right experience at that point.
Hmm.
And honestly, at that point, I really wasn't about the hustle for it. And so I ended up working for some small businesses, still in a creative capacity, but not really what I wanted to do. And realized I didn't like it
Mm-hmm.
and ended up having a quarter life crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and saw a career counselor, career coach, and figured out what I really wanted to do with my life, which was help people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to narrow that down and realized that I wanted to help people actually at the college level. And so I went back and got my master's degree in college counseling and student development. And that experience is what led me into career coaching. I had been coached and it had basically changed my life and changed my trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
And the program that I was doing offered experiences in that as well. And so when I graduated from my master's program, my first position was in career counseling at a college. And then I did that for about 8 or 9 years before I left and went out on my own.
Awesome. So, Julia, the wonderful thing about life is that I bet over 70% of people have the same story like you, where they got a degree in something.
Mm-hmm.
Then they realized, okay, I thought I loved this. Now that I have the degree, there's actually no future in this, or it's not as attainable as I thought. When you said when you were younger, you weren't really about the hustle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, unfortunately, that is when some people lose. I mean, it's never too late to restart. And I think it was a blessing to have a quarter life crisis, then a midlife crisis, and like half of my life went to waste, you know? But as a career coach, if you don't mind sharing some, maybe just a couple tips for people, why is it important to get your hustle in sooner than later, or what is it, a characteristic issue with us? Is it just how we're being raised? What is all that? What's happening there?
Honestly, it's all of that. It is all of that. And so here's the interesting thing. I am a high achiever.
Mm-hmm.
I have always been a high achiever, but I also wanted everything to work out.
Perfectly.
And yes,
Okay.
so perfectionist. I mean, I tick all the boxes
Okay.
of just crazy perfectionist.
Okay.
And when I had that quarter life crisis, it knocked me completely out of whack.
Wow.
And I basically started from the beginning with, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
What am I good at? What am I interested in? I mean, I had to really dig into who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience is what propelled me. And because that changed my life and my trajectory, I found a different perspective and I found that legitimate hustle at that point.
Okay.
I also have anxiety, which I should mention, because that anxiety piece held me back a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go back into points in my life and my career where I'm like, the anxiety got me there.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had recognized it at the time, the experience would have been completely different.
Okay.
So as a career coach now, one of the things that I do is I help people try to figure out what those blocks are. And I'm not a therapist.
Okay.
So that's
important.
That's very important. I am not a therapist, so I will not diagnose you,
Mm-hmm.
but I will definitely be like, here's something I'm seeing, and I think that you need to go and unpack this
Mm-hmm.
with a professional to figure it out. Because I think that's what happens. We have things from our background, from our parents raising us, or just what we've seen in life, experiences that we've had that set us on a path. And sometimes we get to a certain point or something happens to us
Mm-hmm.
that knocks us off. And then all of a sudden those things bubble up and now we have to deal with it.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, for some people, this pandemic happening now is a great maybe opportunity for a check, you know, for a little pit stop, if you will.
Yes, absolutely.
What if you remember, what was that what in your life kind of triggered that realization? Was it just a desperate need of like, look, I have this degree, I can do nothing with it. I actually have to be realistic.
I was unhappy,
Okay.
honestly. I was going through the motions of life,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in a routine that didn't bring me joy, and I needed something. I knew something had to change,
Okay.
and it had to be a drastic change, and that was what triggered me back then when
Okay.
I did the full switch, was just recognizing that I wasn't happy. I did have I think it was my parents that also noticed,
Mm-hmm.
and they were kind of like, what are you doing with your life right
Okay.
now? Like, what's happening? And I listened. And I think that's something too, sometimes we tune people out when they are trying to help us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. It's hard to sit there and hear, hey, something's going on with you that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have more than what you're doing right now.
Okay.
So why are you wasting this time? That's a
Right.
hard message for a perfectionist to hear. And I heard it, and
Yeah.
I stopped and took pause and made a change.
So that right there, what you said, I feel like is so important for whoever's saying those words to say it in the correct way without kind of just like with compassion and just showing that you care. But then the person listening, usually the younger person that does like, I don't need no advice from my mom and dad or whoever
Yeah.
else is older, to kind of learn to accept it. So as a career coach, I'm sure you've been in situations where you have to tell somebody like, look, you got to check yourself. Like this is not working out. What are some reactions you got, and what's the best way maybe to approach, like for example, if my sibling is pursuing she wants to be an artist, right? And I'm like, "Hey, I have no siblings that want to be an artist, but I'm like, hey, that you're not gonna make a living. It's cool. You can do that on the side and grow it, try to grow, but you need a real job.
Right.
What's the best way of saying these types of things?
Honestly, it all comes down to the relationship that you
Mm-hmm.
have with that person. And I think on both ends of that, whether you're the person that has to say it or the person that has to receive it, there has to be a level of understanding and humility
Okay.
to be able to receive it. I think on the receiving end, you have to recognize that the person across from you cares about you, and they want what's best for you. And I think they see more in you than you see in yourself. And so you have to take what they're saying with some grace.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the person that is saying, hey, what's going on? My thing is, ask questions, seek to understand before you attack, because if that's what it's going to feel like, it's going to feel like an attack.
Right.
So before you attack somebody, ask them questions. Why do you want to do this? Why is it important to you? Do you have a plan? Because I've worked with a lot of artists because of my background. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
drew in a lot of artists early in my career. And the one thing that I told them was, look, people are going to try to talk you out of this. But if you're really good and you really want to make a living of it, then you have to have a plan, and you have to be able to articulate that plan to people. And it's going to be the people that love you the most that are going to question it the most.
Right.
So if you're confident in what you want to do and you have a plan for it, then people questioning you shouldn't put you off,
Right.
right? Because
If it's not
there's
just an emotional, hey, I want to do this. Why? Because I
right.
love it.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And that's why people get upset,
Yeah.
because it is this emotional attachment, and that I feel like is what I'm good at, is like detach the emotion
Yeah. Yeah.
from your decisions in that way, and have that plan, have a solid plan of action that you can then execute.
Hmm.
And even in career management or advancement or switching your career, all of those transitions that you make, you
Hmm.
have to have a plan.
Okay.
Because if you don't, then you're just flying blind and throwing things at the wall and hoping that it's going to stick.
Right.
And the people closest to you, again, are going to be like, what are you doing? Why are you just, doing all these random activities? But if you sit down and you go, okay, here's where I'm trying to go, this is what
Hmm.
I want to get to, and then you outline the steps to get there, then let's say you're married or you have a partner, you can sit them down and say, look, here's where I want to go, and here are all the things I need to do to get there.
Hmm.
Now that person can support you in a different way because they see the roadmap, they
Hmm.
see the plan. And if you have to be gone a couple nights a week because you're going to coffee or dinner or you're going to networking events or whatever, there's a different level of understanding because you've laid it out for them.
So you are both on the same page heading towards a certain goal. And then it doesn't cause certain like misunderstandings in your relationships and all
Right.
that sorts of stuff. So my next question would be like, say for example, I personally me, I'm a project engineer and for a construction company. I have my job. I'm happy where I'm at. Do do I'm guessing you wouldn't work with somebody that's saying, "Why do I need to better myself? Why do I need to move up?" Because if they don't see the reason for themselves, then you're wasting your time.
Yeah. So at this point, so I worked about 8 or 9 years in higher ed with all different levels of people.
Hmm.
And I've worked with everybody from the insanely motivated student who really just needs me to be like, yes, you're doing it right,
Okay.
but can go out and do it, to the person that was forced to come and talk to me for whatever reason.
Okay.
And the person that's forced to come and talk to you, they're not going to make progress. They're not going to go anywhere because their heart's not in it
Hmm.
and they're absolutely not motivated to do it.
Okay.
And I have a very distinct style. I'm very direct with my clients. I'm very honest with my clients. I tell them the things that other people don't want to tell them.
Okay.
And I point out their blind spots and I really question them hard. So I know I am not the career coach for everyone.
Okay.
But I'm okay with that because I know that the people that I do coach who are ready for it, they end up making insane strides
Right.
because they're ready and they're motivated.
The success rate is your proof. And I bet people that actually want to be successful and progress in their careers need somebody that can be honest with them
Mm-hmm.
and not, I mean, you know better than I do because not being honest isn't going to get anybody anywhere.
Right.
So as a career coach, I know you have a family. What is to your career kind of more side? What is your schedule like? I mean, you're working for yourself. Are there businesses where you can be a career coach working for someone? How does
Mm-hmm.
all that work? That side of the.
Yeah, so the most common is working in higher education because there are the most opportunities in that world.
Hmm.
And again, that's where I came from. And that's a normal, 8 to 5 job with doing some event things, usually on the weekends and in the evenings.
Hmm.
There are some companies that hire career coaches, usually like in the HR side of things.
Okay.
That's very rare because it's such a specialized thing. And it's kind of an extra piece to a company. So when a company is really committed to growth of their people inside, leadership development, all of that,
Hmm.
then they will have someone like me in house doing that.
Okay.
And then there are people that do it privately, like what I do. And that can vary across the board. Some people have a full-time job doing something else, and then they're a career coach on the side.
Okay.
Because you have, I know we talked about the different types, but there are also two other types. You have career coaches who are generalists,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I am. So it doesn't matter what your career path is.
Mm-hmm.
I can help you in the career management side and all of that.
Okay.
Then there are people who specialize.
Okay.
So you're in this industry and you are helping people get into this industry, or specifically in a certain type of functional area or something like that.
So would
And
that
so
would that be more of like an agent? I'm thinking agents like sports agents, agents for actors, or that's different.
no, they'll still do the same things that we do,
Okay.
but they'll do it with a heavier lens on that industry or that functional area.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. I want to go back to a little bit. You mentioned you were a counselor in higher education in college, and that's kind of where most people, I guess, can be or practice career coaching. And I'm
Mm.
going to be honest, I met with counselors in high school and college. They were not helpful at all. Um, they did say what prereqs needed to be taken for a certain class. Um,
That's an academic advisor.
that's academic advice. So it's not
Yes.
they just call them a
Not a
counselor.
career counselor. Yeah, so
Okay.
you have an academic counselor or an academic advisor,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's a faculty member, not even a staff member. And then you have career counselors or career coaches. They have all different kinds of names for them. They're housed in the career center at a college.
Okay.
So two different functions,
You know,
two different directives.
as soon as I told you they weren't helpful at all, I realized the fact that I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. And so when you don't know what you want to do, how can somebody help you? So that's right. That's a great
That's my
question.
favorite. Those are the people I love working with.
Yeah, so that's my question. My next question, which is, how do you help people realize what they want to do for the rest of their life? Or
That's such
I
a
mean, do you
loaded
do
question.
that? What's that?
No, I do that. It's a very loaded question. So it depends on what stage you're in. So
Okay.
college, having this conversation in college level is
Mm-hmm.
very different than somebody with 10 to 15
Mm,
years of professional experience, doesn't matter what it is.
okay.
Because somebody who is more mid-career has enough experience that they will be able to articulate and give you better answers than somebody who's in college who's still trying to figure out who they are.
Okay,
So
that makes
there are
sense.
some we go through some similar activities, but in college, more often than not, it's going to be you need to go experience anything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
But for
so
like
go
but
ahead, go
for a
ahead.
for a mid-level person,
Mm-hmm.
if I ask them, what are the top 3 skills that you use in your job right now that you absolutely love?
Mm-hmm.
Chances are they can answer that question for me. And
Okay.
so that will progress the conversation quicker.
That makes sense because they've had a job for example, a multiple number of years, and they've seen themselves in different aspects of projects and where they're good at, where they're not good at. Um, so I guess what I'm trying to say, or what I'm remembering now, is when I was in school, and every time we'd have a certain group project or a say we're annotating or something, right? And the teacher says, okay, well, you got to annotate this, and we're gonna separate. Everybody's responsible for their own thing, and me just being a kid in school, I'm like, dude, when am I gonna use this in life? Why do I need this? And that's the biggest question I think most young people have today is why do I need this? Why do I need to learn to write a persuasive essay? Why do I need these things? Um it Every person that I interview here says you have to expose yourself to this field before you go out and get the job. You have to go ask to shadow, ask to just to do anything, kind of like you said, just go out there and do it.
Yes.
What is the best age that you've seen people go out there and do it or get a job and 5 years later realize that, hey, I actually don't like this and totally switch it up?
All the ages.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, that, I think that's conception that people have early on. I need one
Okay.
career
Mm-hmm.
in one company and I'm going to do that forever and I'm not going to get bored because this is the plan, this is the path. And then 5 years in they're like, "Man, I hate this job. I do not want to do this anymore." But they haven't thought beyond that because in those 5 years that they've been working, they haven't done anything else.
Right.
They've just been working. And so one of the things that I advocate for is you get a job, you spend 6 months really just learning it, getting into it, finding your rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that 6 month mark, you're now thinking, okay, what connections do I need to keep up with? What could that next position be, whether it's with that company
Mm-hmm.
or you want to transition out? You might not transition anything for 5 years, but if you start thinking about it early on, you can start to make strategic decisions in your current position that's going to help you with whatever that next role is. So, whether that's learning the right skill sets, asking to be on certain projects, networking with different people, joining professional associations, all of these activities you should be consistently doing
Okay.
because you never know where an opportunity is going to come or where a relationship that you've built is going to help you get to that next
Okay.
stage. And that's where people at all ages drop the ball.
I like that. I heard somebody say, if you're not getting smarter, you're getting dumber. So,
Yes.
so the goal is to always better yourself. No
Yes.
matter, don't be, and before I've caught myself in like being, in this trap where I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm content. I, this is what I want. But then I'm like, okay, well, this is this all I have for myself, like for life? Like that's and then I started listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson. And this guy, and man, he was my career coach and my life coach for a couple of years, and I'm just like, well, why? There has to be a goal. Like you were saying, you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And if your plan is 40 years away, if and you think that's so long, I have all this time, well, then that should be easier just to chip out one piece at a time.
Yes.
One piece at a
Absolutely.
time.
Well, and one thing I also want to emphasize is we go through seasons. And you're a parent, I'm a parent, right?
Hmm.
When you
Hmm.
have those kids, man, you're like, I don't want any big changes. I don't want to switch careers. I don't want to do
Right,
anything
right.
crazy because I'm trying to like keep the humans alive. And in those times, recognizing it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to just do your job and do it to the best of your ability without worrying about what comes next.
Mm,
But once you start to get comfortable in the parenting gig, especially if it's your first kid, then you have to go back to, okay, now I got to get back into this. Do I want to stay in this role much longer? Do I want to do something else? And if you're somebody that wants, security and you want to stay in a position for a long time, that's absolutely fine.
right.
But you have to be able to say, I want this and this is why.
Okay. I like that. When you were saying that, I'm thinking you were saying it's okay to step back and then get back on track to where you left off. And I'm thinking, okay, so a person that doesn't have a plan, for example, they don't have a 10-year plan, for example, um, they have a child or something in life happens where they have to step back. Well, if you had no plan, you have nothing to go back to
Right.
after this happens. So then I think that's where most people feel lost, right? This happened, and now I have no idea what I want to do because I don't have any idea where I left off.
Right. So I could tell you life experience that happened to me very recently, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I'm actually doing this business now.
Okay.
So I lost my dad in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I had my son in 2017
Mm-hmm.
and lost my mom in 2018.
Wow.
So I had this like 2 year period where I had major life changes. And I'm an only child. So
Wow.
I didn't have siblings to, get through or help me with my parents.
Right.
And so that whole experience completely changed my career path.
Wow.
I was at a point where I actually really liked my job. I was just getting ready to launch this massive project I had worked on since I got there. I mean, it was going to be amazing, and from a career standpoint, it would have set me up to go really far where
Mm-hmm.
I was, and I left it. I left it
Wow.
all because I couldn't get the flexibility that I wanted to manage my kid, manage, my parents' estate and everything that came with having to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus grief. I mean, only child,
Yeah,
it was a lot. It
I
was just a
bet.
lot to manage. And so that experience just completely shifted my view of what I wanted for my life.
Okay.
And that's what prompted our move out of state. It's what prompted me starting this company and the way that I started it, why I do the things that I do in the company. It all came out of that experience. So even if you have a plan,
Mm-hmm.
the plan can absolutely change.
Okay.
And I think that's something that people don't think about either. They think, okay, I
Right.
have a plan, so I have to stick to the plan. No, you don't have to stick to the plan because life happens and you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to shift and change, but you have to understand why. And so I basically had to career counsel myself and go, okay, why are you doing this? Why is this important? Because you're making a huge life change.
Yeah. Oftentimes people feel like they fail because they had a plan and now they have to change the plan.
Right?
But I think, and if you could talk about this a little bit, I think where we do fail is how we react to that change.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
how so I don't know if you want to get into the details, but what were some of the things like that you did, maybe not specifically, but the things that you looked at in your life, or the things that helped you make the correct choices after these changes in your life, and kind of how your plan was affected.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I had quite a few months of what the heck did I just do?
Okay.
What decision did I just make? What am I doing? I,
Mm-hmm.
I almost reverted back to my 25-year-old self going, what am I doing with my life? Why did I make this choice? Why did I make this decision? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that because I think you have to give yourself grace in these instances,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to give yourself space to mourn the plan that you had.
Okay.
And to recognize that even though that plan is not happening, it doesn't mean that there's not a better plan in front of you. It's just different.
Okay.
And so I talked to different people. I had different people in my life that I really confided in around what was happening with me, with all those, life changes that had happened. And they really helped me talk through, you're not a bad person. You're not any less of a hard worker because you made this decision.
Mm-hmm.
You went through a major life change, and you just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so it's just piece by piece. I had to start asking myself, okay, well, what do you want to do? What makes sense to you? And at that time, I actually didn't want to coach people. I didn't want to be around people at all. I was burnt out
Mm-hmm.
of coaching people. And that's why I started a podcast, because I was like, I have all this information to share. I've talked to so many people. I want to get this out. I'm just going to do a podcast because that's just me, and I'm relying on me, and that's what I need right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to work through what that meant. Why did I feel that way? What was going on? So every decision that I made, I had to ask myself those questions. Why are you making this decision? Why is it important to you? And are you hanging on to something from your past life? Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sense?
No,
Did I answer your question?
that does. No, I'm thinking. I definitely agree with that, and I'm thinking another kind of perspective of that is some people, after they go through something that changes their life, they still try with their career, with any other decisions. They're like, okay, I have to do this because this will make these people happy. This will make these people think like this about me. When in fact, that why question is, why are you actually doing this, is so important.
Yeah, and again, it's digging deep. It's digging deep with what is behind all of this. And I made such a big switch because I looked at my parents, I looked at the life that they lived, and I looked at the life that my husband and I were living at the time, and I was like, I don't want to live like this.
Yeah.
I don't want my son to be raised this way. And we weren't doing anything wrong.
Right.
But I wanted to be there for him in a different way than we were at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my why. And I had to really, as somebody who is a workaholic, who is very dedicated to their jobs, that was a huge shock to me. I didn't think that I would think that way.
Yeah.
So I had to take time to sit in that and understand what that meant for me moving forward.
So this is super interesting to me, especially for women and even men watching this, because men that have wives, that have a career, and if you as a family decide to have kids, right? Mm-hmm. Or any other life changes, like this is an important talk for spouses to have with one another. And I'm sure there's many women out there with a career and, like you said, a workaholic, and I'm sure there's a bunch of dedicated women that would work the tails off if they could. But then things happen in life, and maybe you want to have a family. And some women might feel ashamed, or like, hey, and I've spoken to some of them where they say, I don't know if this is the right time for me because I'm in a good position in my company. They might look down on me for taking time off, this and that. What would, from your experience, what would you have to say to that?
Oh man. I think it's a different decision for everyone because everyone's in a different financial position. Everyone has different drive.
Okay.
I think my thing is, as a woman, I have to be comfortable with the decisions that I make. And I honestly never thought that I would choose my family over my career.
Okay.
Which sounds odd because that's not a common thing. Mm-hmm. But I love working. Yeah. And I love my career. That's honestly why I still have, I'm still running a business. I'm still doing this because I love to work. But I learned also from that time I could not stay home with my son
Mm-hmm.
24/7. And I was okay with that because that's who I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think the problem is society and history tells us if you're a woman, then you have to be okay being at home. You have to be okay being the primary caregiver and all of these things. And I've never believed, oh, I have to be this thing, I have to be that thing. I don't cook
Yeah.
in my house. My husband does all the cooking, he
That's
does all the
awesome.
grocery shopping. I don't, I mean, sometimes I tell him, like, oh, I'd really like this, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't cook because I don't like it. I don't want to
Right.
do it. And I had shame over that, when we first got married. And then real quick, we had discussion around it. And he's like, well, I love to cook. So what does it matter?
Yeah.
And so for my husband and I, as long as he and I were on the same page around my career, his career, you know, our roles in the home,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care what other people thought because
And
it's none of their business.
amen. That's so important for just like in a career, making sure you have the why is answered for you like personally, and you in your family home to be on the same page with your spouse, because that eventually will affect your career, um,
Mm-hmm.
managing your career, managing your spouse's career. Um,
Yeah, too many people care about what other people think.
yeah.
And unfortunately, it's the people that are closest to us that we care the most about their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and I have done a lot of work in the last year or so to really distance ourselves from that.
Okay.
And so if you are not somebody who is important in our life, you're not asking us questions about why we're making the choices we're making, you're not really understanding why we're doing what we're doing, we're not going to make space for you and
Okay.
we're not going to make time for you. And that's hard for some people to take and it's hard for some people to understand.
It is.
But that is the choice that we made. And honestly, our marriage, our family, our everything is better because of it.
That is a important step. That's all. You're almost like a marriage counselor now.
Well, that's the funny thing with career counseling. It's so much life coaching also.
Yeah.
And because I will dig into your life to help you make career choices and decisions. So that's why I'm so passionate about all these things because I've had to have these discussions with clients and with myself. And you realize how much of it mingles in together.
And this, I think this is so cool because you're not like a perfect career coach that hasn't had any issues. This has been your kind of your thing that's you've been doing all your life. You've actually went through all this stuff, experienced it yourself, having to reset yourself a couple times, and now you can advise somebody else. What kind of people hire a career coach? Are these CEOs? Are these managers? Are these someone beginning their careers?
It's across the board, honestly. And at each level, usually you're looking for something different.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I do not work with executives and C suite
Okay.
people. That's not my specialty. I believe that there are people out there that are insanely gifted working with those people.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it's kind of the mid career, 10 to 15 years. You've been in your career and you're kind of like, what am I doing
Okay.
right now? Or you're trying to manage it. You're trying to figure it out and you just keep hitting roadblocks and you need somebody to come in and go, okay, this is why this is happening. Let's pivot. Let's try this. Let's try that.
Okay.
Um, Early career, you don't see, I don't feel like you see them doing career coaching as much because most of the time you don't have the money for
Mm-hmm.
it. Also, if you're coming right out of college, ideally your college has those resources to help you. And so many colleges now also have resources for recent grads and early career to help them with that transition. So I feel like they have a ton of resources out there for them. But even for me, the content that I put out, what I look at is, the podcast for the most part, it helps everybody. My social media pages, anybody can glean something from that regardless of what level you're at. And so that's part of what I'm committed to because I want to help as many people as I
Right.
can take action in their career in some way. And then you might have some other resources or courses or your actual coaching that's going to hone in on a specific type of person. So even when you're looking for a career coach, you might have to meet with a couple of people before you find someone that you really like and you really connect with for them to be able, because you have to be able to hear them. You have
Right.
to be able to not fight them because I know for me, if somebody's constantly coming up against me, I'm like, peace out. This
I'm not
isn't
the
a
one
good
for
fit.
you.
I'm not the one for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. So maybe someone listening here today, or just listening or watching hit a plateau, right? That they've leveled out and they're thinking, what first is why do I need a career coach and how can this professional improve my career or improve my life? What from your experience, why do they need one and how can a career coach improve their career or their life?
I think you need one when you want more. When you want more and you're just not sure how to get there,
Mm-hmm.
or something has happened to you that is stunting you from moving forward. So many people are in toxic leadership situations, toxic work environments, or they've had something happen to them that's just killed their confidence. And so if you find yourself really just skating through your career, your life with no real highs or lows, no real trajectory or movement, then I would say if you're motivated to make that change,
Mm-hmm.
then that's when a career coach can be helpful. But honestly, I'm a huge proponent in use as much free stuff out there as you can, because some people are driven enough that if they get the right content, they'll be able to break through whatever that block is or whatever that thing is that's stopping them from
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. So I absolutely believe in trying to take in content, but there are other people who they just need another person. They need to talk it out, and that's okay. That's when a career coach can come in and help them work through that. And it doesn't have to be a long relationship. It can be,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you're at in your career, but it might just be, 3 or 4 sessions of here's where I'm at in my career. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's talk it out. Let's do some, assessments or exercises or whatever it might be. And that might be it. And you might get past it and you're good to go.
Okay. Okay. From your experience, what are some I don't want to say most popular, but what are some of the most common reasons for people like hitting that stalemate?
I would say there's a change in the company.
Okay.
So leadership changes, a merger happens, you get moved into a role you didn't ask for, you get demoted, some shift happens, and because you haven't been doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
you're stuck.
Okay.
Well, I can't get another job because I don't have a network. I haven't updated my resume in 5 years, or I don't have the confidence to go and get another job. I'm not going to get hired anywhere. I don't have the right education. You use all these excuses, and I think that's what tends to stop people. And some people get motivated by that. So some people, something will happen, in the company and they're motivated almost by anger toward it. And that propels them to make the change and do what they need to do, but other people will retreat. And I think if you're somebody that you're listening to this and you're like, ooh, I have retreated,
Mm-hmm.
that's a red flag.
Okay.
And like we talked about in the beginning, if you have people in your life going, are you okay? Is everything all right at work? Or, if people are asking you those questions, that to me is a trigger too. So that's another thing to look out for.
Okay, so that's kind of maybe where that person needs to reevaluate maybe where they're at, the steps they're taking, or where the direction they're heading in. Um, so a couple how can I questions. One would be obviously how can I find a career coach? Obviously, there's one right here, a professional, Julia. So if you are looking for a career coach, reach out to Julia. But like you said, maybe someone's looking out there and they want to interview a couple career coaches. Where can somebody find career coaches? Is there a website, or are there what are the resources?
So honestly, this day and age, I'm like, go on LinkedIn, go on Instagram, and look up career coaches and follow the ones that have social media. And, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said that.
Mm-hmm.
But now I say that because you can really learn a lot about somebody based on what they're putting out there online. And so I know for me, I try to post videos and I do have the podcast and things like that, but I try to do things that show people this is who I am and this is my personality. So when you follow different people online, you start to hear their voice. You start to understand how they give advice. If you follow me on Instagram, I am hard hitting with content. My page is not, fluffy, feel good stuff. I mean, sometimes I do that, but for the most part, I try to post things that make you think. So
Yeah.
if you don't like that, then I'm not going to be a good coach for you, right? But there are other coaches that they mirror different things. They put different things together, different components. So you might have a career coach that puts together mindfulness or yoga. There's one out there that I know she does like yoga and meditation, and that might be a really great fit for you. Or maybe you want somebody that is still working, and then LinkedIn would be a great place to try to find someone.
Okay.
There are some professional associations related to career counseling. Um, and you can find good people there, but honestly, I think this day and age, and I'm sure your audience, they're going to want to see somebody and they're going to want to research them online. So that's where I think, hashtag career coach, looking that up on your social media and just seeing who pops up. Honestly, that's where I would start. And you can
Okay.
search if you want somebody in your area,
Mm-hmm.
then you can just do a Google search for career coaches and then your city or, your metropolitan area, and you'll get a list of people as well.
Okay, that makes sense. The next how can I question would be somebody looking to follow your footsteps in your career, and they want to be a counselor, and they maybe in high school they took child development and it was so fun, and now they want to be a counselor. And honestly, I'm trying, like when I was in college, I felt like so many people were trying to become counselors. Everybody was taking
Right.
a counsel class, and personally, I don't know if there's that many counseling jobs out there. But if somebody wants to become a career coach, how can they? What can they expose themselves to, and kind of how could they grow into this?
So the interesting thing about career coaching is not everyone has a counseling background.
Okay.
And to me, that is a big distinction. I've seen career coaches out there who have very popular followings, and I have no idea why, based on what I've read of their story. And they get results, so that's probably why. But for someone like me, I want to know that you have some type of background that's going to work with what I want. And so for me, education is important. So I have a master of science in counseling,
Okay.
but I don't have a license. So that's a distinction as well. There are career coaches who are licensed therapists.
Okay.
And if you know that you need to dig deep into some past issues that are impacting your career path, then you would want to find a licensed therapist who specializes in career.
But
So that's an
I'm like
option.
imagining like drama sessions with the career coach and life coaching and everything put together.
It would be everything. Yeah. There's not as many of those. Usually they'll separate their practice. So anyway, my point to that is there are a lot of paths into career coaching. So for some people, it's this was my experience, this was my life experience, and I'm
Hmm.
flipping that into coaching because I've coached a couple different people and I like it and I seem to be good at it, so I'm going to start a career, right? Or I'm a executive C-level person, I've been doing this for 30 years and this is my encore career, right? This is what I'm doing at the second half of my life, is helping people, and I'm going to be a career coach. People who were recruiters, a lot
Hmm.
of recruiters will end up going into career coaching once they're done with their recruiting thing. And they're great too, because if they were a tech recruiter for a lot of different companies, they're going to have a niche in tech. So there are so many different ways that you can get into it. I think my advice is talk to people in different areas. So talk to a career counselor who's out of college, talk to a licensed therapist who also does career, talk to a recruiter or talk to a career coach that has a recruiting background. I think you want to talk to people in those different paths because your path might look different. And I'll be honest with you, most people do not come out of high school going, I want to be a career coach.
Right.
It's usually something you fall into later because of something that's happened in your career path. So it's very rare that I meet someone that actually wants to do this, from the beginning of their career.
That's true. There's actually so many careers uh, that are available 5, 10 years after you've actually exposed yourself to different types of work ethics and different types of jobs and stuff like that. My last question would be, for example, we're in this quarantine, right? 5 million plus people lost their jobs. There's going to be a lot of people looking for jobs now. Um, what is someone listening maybe lost their job? What is your suggestion? What is the best way someone can prepare themselves? And I saw, I think you shared some of this, like just tips, and other career coaches share tips on things we can do or things people can do to be competitive in this upcoming job market where there's going to be a lot of people applying for jobs.
Yeah, so I think the thing to remember is jobs are going to start coming back, right?
Okay.
I feel like what has happened was just a snap reaction to the COVID-19
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think once everybody's like, okay, you can go back to work now, I think you're going to start to see people getting hired back,
Okay.
possibly at a slower rate, depending on what industry you're in.
Okay.
But here's the other reality: there are jobs out there. There are people still hiring,
Yeah.
but you might not want that job. And so, in this time of what's happening, you really have to take that humble pill and go, if I need money to survive and for my family to survive,
Mhm.
then you're going to take one for the team.
Right.
And you're going to go stock at, the grocery store or Costco. You're going to go to a warehouse and where, you're going to, you have to do what you have to do. And I think what happens is people think that that is a bad thing. Oh, but I'm at this level in my career, so I should be this. I need to do this. Not if you need to put food on the table, you don't. You need
Right.
to get a dang job and bring some money
Right.
in. And so I think that's where the ego has to leave, and you have to make decisions that are going to help your family survive. And so that's what I would start with. Obviously, unemployment and all the resources and things that we're given.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but do what you can to put money to, put food on the table. And then once things start bouncing back, this is a really great time to, update that resume. Or did you even like the career that you were in that you just got fired from?
Yeah.
Now's a great time to do some of that research and some of that inner work to go, okay, yeah, I do want to continue on this path. I do want to try to get rehired by this company. Or, you know what? No, this was a fresh start for me and I'm going to go down this other path. So I think you do have some different options.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an exciting thing, but people are going to have to grieve the loss. And there's a lot happening right now. This quarantine is affecting people in different ways. And so I think now it's starting to become a little more normalized because we've been in it for about a month
Mm-hmm.
at the time that we're recording this. And so if you're getting to a place of, okay, we have a little bit of a routine down, it's normalizing, then start adding some things back in to help you for that next step, especially if you had been let go. And then beyond that, here's my last piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not have anywhere from 3 to 6 months of finances built up, that needs to be the first thing that you do when you get out of this.
Okay.
Is build up your savings so that if something like this happens, you don't have to go get a stocking job somewhere to put food on the table. And I know that that's hard for some people depending on, their socioeconomic status and all kinds of factors.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, for the people that have done that, it's what's saving them right now because this type of thing is what that money is for.
That's awesome. And if I may, I'd like to add to the fact that most like stupid choices are made when we're most desperate. And when you don't have that buffer of the 3 to 6 months savings, that's when some people kind of like just freak out, like kind of you talked about anxiety, and they do dumb decisions. Either they just drop their hands and they're like, dude, I'm done. I can't take this pressure. And I mean, there's a whole list of dumb things you can do when you're not prepared for something like this. So I really appreciate what you said. And that is very important is, that savings account, which gives you that mental stability even through a crisis, and
Yes.
that emotional stability. So,
well, and if you are freaking out, right?
Yeah.
If you are having all of these heightened emotions, why? I mean, yes, obviously quarantine and all of these things, but a lot of times it's something a lot deeper. And, my husband and I, yeah, this has been hard for us, but we've been working from the house for the last like 6 or 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had time to adjust to just working from home together. So this wasn't a huge shift for us, but we had to have a lot of conversations about what everybody being in the house looks like
Mm-hmm.
and means. And I think now you're seeing people go, oh man, we got to be in the house with everybody all at the same time. And now we can't sweep some feelings under the rug like we used to because we can't leave and go to work to cool off.
Right.
Right. And so I think people have to dig into why am I upset right now and what's going on and how do I communicate that to my partner, to my family, so that we can all come out of this together
Mm-hmm.
instead of ripped apart.
Okay. And I think this is my last question, but a lot of corporations people are working from home now. Do you see this as a possibility where many corporations will realize like, hey, why am I paying rent for these offices when all these people can continue to work from home? And hopefully by now they've realized a plan for people to still be productive.
Absolutely.
So do you think this is a possibility?
Yeah, I think you will start to see that, which actually is an opportunity for a lot of corporations, because now you're not locked into people who live in your immediate area. So your pool for people expands.
There you go.
Right? But there are liabilities with working from home too. And so I don't know all the HR details of that.
Okay.
But there are so many companies that do it now that I think you're going to start to see that. And I think that's going to be an interesting shift. But on the flip side of that, you have employees who are learning whether or not they can work at home.
Okay.
Right? Because you have some people who love it, who are so much more productive because they have hours, that they can devote to a project, and they're not being interrupted every 10 seconds by somebody. And then you have other people who thrive on humans, who thrive on people being around them, and they're, in their office by themselves, freaking out because there's no humans around them, right?
Right, exactly.
So I think you're going to see people come out of this and go, man, I loved working from home. Hey, can I work from home once a week or a couple times a month? I think you're going to start to hear that. Or you're going to have people say, no, I love being in the office. I will never complain about coming to the office again. And please don't ever make us work from home. I think you're going to see both sides of that.
Okay, I agree. So I want to say, Julia, thank you so much for making time for coming on. I appreciate all the tips and advice and kind of insight you've shared tonight. Where can people kind of find what you have to offer? You mentioned you're on Instagram. Where else do you?
Yes, so primarily on Instagram, but I also hang out on LinkedIn. I have a company page for Ride the Tide Collective, and then on Facebook and our website, ridethetidecollective.com, which has links to all of that social media as well.
Okay, and if you're watching this, we'll definitely have a link below in the description for the video to Ride the Tide Collective. Last question, how'd you come up with Ride the Tide Collective? What is that about?
So I'm actually from Southern California.
Okay.
And when I was coming up with the name, so I have an odd last name. And so I knew that I didn't want my name to be my company. I knew that from the beginning.
Okay.
And I just wanted this nod to Southern California and to the beach culture. My husband's from San Diego. And so I just love this idea of the water and the colors that were associated with that. I have an art background, so, branding is very important to me. And then at the time, I also had, and I still have this, I have a vision of this company being bigger than just me. So moving forward, probably, I don't know when, at some point, I want to hire more career coaches. I want to hire like financial coaches to come in. I want to hire life coaches. Like I want to have just a bigger organization and variety, like a one-stop shop to help you just, kill it in your life. And so that's why I wanted the company name to be bigger than just me.
Okay. Awesome. That's a beautiful plan, Julia. That's a beautiful plan.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for coming on and making time for this. I found it very interesting. So
thank you for having me. This was really fun. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Alrighty. Have a good night. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.